Is Venti worth it? Well, let's find out, guys. Hi everyone, this is Lo-Fi Noel, and I'm here to just talk about Venti and all, since he's getting his, I think, third rerun. And to be honest with you guys, I was really shocked that he was getting another one. I mean, I was thinking that there was a lot more characters that should have gotten the rerun before him, but I digress. So the point of this video right here, guys, is just really to talk about, is he a good Anemo character versus all the other ones? So we're going to be comparing him to the 5 stars that we have and also the 4 stars. And we're going to also talk about his talents and then my overall review of him at the end. So before we get into it, guys, if you like the content, then feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification button. You know, the usual thing that everyone says on their channel. So with any further ado, let's get started. I'm going to be breaking down Venti's talents first, so then we have like a foundation of his kit before we start comparing him to all the other characters. So Venti's normal attacks are just garbage in my eyes, guys, and if you use this, you're the reason why that he got his Anemo Archon taken away from him by Senora. And on top of that, if Venti was actually real, guys, to be honest, he's too drunk to really hit anything with an arrow, which is why his normals are basically useless. So anyway, on to the element skill. Venti's element skill basically summons a wind domain at the opponent's location, and it basically deals like Anemo damage towards them and launches them in the air. His element skill can also swirl different elements in the game if it's close to him if he's using his element skill. Venti also has another part to his element skill, which is more of a hold. So when you hold his element skill, he is able to summon a larger wind domain, and it just makes it to where he can fly up in the air and still do the same thing with the Anemo damage, and then he can also launch back down because he's in the air, so you can do a plunge attack. Venti's hold is only useful whenever you're just trying to get somewhere that you just don't want to climb. Venti's element burst basically just shoots out a giant field of Anemo AoE that just sucks in and pulls in all the enemies dealing AoE, and then it can also change or swirl into like fire or water or cryo depending on whatever it comes in contact with. Really deep down, that is his best thing about him, which is why a lot of people like him. He makes everything easier to group together, so then you can just all attack them at once and not really have to deal with anything with like enemies being away from each other, or you're having to run behind or run after a certain enemy. Now before I get into the first character that I want to compare him to, I want to tell you guys about his constellations if you're trying to figure out which one you want and you just happen to have Venti. To be honest, you don't need any constellations. He does really good and just as good at Constellation 0 more than anything. Really deep down, the only point of going for constellations is just really if you just truly love the character, and that's really it, guys. But I would recommend to you guys, Constellation 2 is his best at, and you can really stop there unless you're just a Giga Chad and you go to 6. Now onto the first character I want to compare him to, which is the Traveler. When I think about Traveler versus Venti, it's kind of like, to me, they do the same thing, but not really per se. So Traveler is more of like staying in one area and he's holding out his element skill, and that's what's pulling the enemies, while Venti's element skill just makes it everything around him gets pulled up in the air and gets hit by an AoE. To be honest, in that light per se, Venti does better than Anemo Traveler. His supporting capabilities for your team versus Traveler's Anemo for your team is a lot better per se in my eyes. But the cons of Venti is you just have to summon for him, while Traveler is free. We got him on day 1. So to be honest, if you just have a Traveler but you don't have a Venti, but you're needing another Anemo character, really deep down, you know, it's just better to just build a Traveler. You know, it's not gonna hurt you, and he does just as good as Venti in most cases. But in most cases, I feel as though Venti is the better option because he just provides that supporting capability. When you think about a character that you just want to help your other units make sure that enemies are not moving around and just in one area, Venti is where you want to really go to, because again, it doesn't take that much for you to pop his element skill as an element burst, and he does his job just as well. You can also, whenever you come down to building him, all you really want is just ER and element mastery and the 4 set Viridescence. And that's really it. You don't have to care about anything else, since Anemo does not crit at all, so you don't need crit rate and crit damage. You really just need those things that I said, and call it a day. So he's a really good unit if you really just want to go unga bunga and you don't have to think about anything other than group enemy dies. As well as, since he is like the very first character that we ever got as a 5-star, you know, he still has a lot of his materials, how he leveled him up, his talent books, all this is still in Mondstadt. And deep down, you know, as we keep going further and further in the game, guys, if you're low AR, you will not be able to level up certain characters because certain areas are locked depending on your AR in the game. So if you're getting a new character like Kazuha, for example, and let's just say you're like AR 50, not 53, 38, 28, 40, you know, and you just haven't got around to doing Inazuma or even close with it, and you haven't unlocked certain bosses and everything, you're stuck with a new character that you cannot touch whatsoever. But with Venti, it's a lot easier to go ahead and start working on him, start getting his books and everything, like I said, because again, he is the starting character that you can work on since he's in Mondstadt. Now on to the next two characters, because I want to put them together because generally they do the same thing in my eyes, which is Sayu and Jean. Jean and Sayu is more of a healing type of animal character that provides utility and also healing capabilities for your team. Now, me personally, I always love a support that can do these roles. I don't want a supporting character that just does only one thing good and then like they don't have anything else, especially healers. In Genshin Impact, healers are just non-existent at this point. And really deep down, you don't need a healer that just heals. You need a healer that can do supporting capabilities of buffing, which is why Jean and Sayu does a really good job of this. Now, with Jean being the more of the 5-star here, it is a little bit harder to get her, but the thing is, that makes it better than Venti, you don't have to wait around for her banner. While versus with Venti, you have to wait. So if you miss your chance of getting Venti, you have to wait a whole nother rerun in order to get him. While instead with Jean, all you have to do is just load up on the standard banner and then like just try your luck on there. And with Sayu, she's more of a 4-star, so you have better luck of getting her. And if she's on a banner, then you can easily just summon on that banner just to see if you get her. And if you don't want to summon on whatever character that they bring out and then they have the 4-star with them, you can just easily go do the standard banner instead and then try your luck with there. Most of the time, people have a better opportunity of getting characters that are 4 stars than 5 stars. So with Sayu and Jean, they provide healing and also making sure that the enemies are also hit by the 4 stat, which just makes it to where that you're able to do more damage depending on whatever swirl that you do. So if you slap fire on them and then you swirl it, then your fire character will just do more damage whenever it's messing with other characters or elements per se. So I always, me personally, love to see Jean and Sayu a lot more than Venti because they're just providing a little bit more, and that means that I don't have to too much worry about, okay, I might need a healer here in this department, or hey, I don't have like a Zhongli and I don't want to put a Jean here. You see what I'm saying? Like it just feels better to have a support unit that can do a lot of different roles and you can just cover your bases. So I feel as though Jean and Sayu is a lot better per se when it comes down to providing more support. Now, when we talk about the healing aspect, that is a different story. I will say that Jean does almost better healing than Sayu in some cases, but really deep down, it all depends on how you feel about the healing. But the problems that I see with Jean and Sayu is that it's hard for them to apply Anemo to the characters. I feel this on Jean. Whenever I use Jean's burst and everything, and she's able to put down the Anemo and whatnot, I feel as though it just doesn't do a whole lot, and the circle for your little area of healing as well is too small, and that kind of ruins a slot for me, because the whole point of an Anemo is to make it to where that when you swirl something, the enemy will take more damage depending on whatever you swirl with that element. But for some odd reason, since her circle is so small, and it just doesn't feel like it's doing enough. The damage is mediocre in most cases. Now Sayu, I feel as though it kind of does a little bit better. I feel like her circle is still small compared to Jean as well, but her little bear or panda bear can do a lot better than Jean whenever we talk about swirling an enemy with certain type of elements most of the time. But all in all, I feel as though to rock a Sayu or Jean, if you're just needing a healer per se, not anything else really. If you don't need a healer, or you don't need someone like trying to keep your team alive, and you're only just needing someone to do one thing, and that's really it, then really deep down Venti is going to outshine them both heavily. He is still able to provide good Anemo AoE to the enemies, and his swirl does a lot better than opposed of Jean and Sayu. Now on to Sucrose. Whenever I think about Sucrose, I kind of feel as though she's budget Venti. And I know that, you know, people say this and everything, but it's honestly true. Whenever you use Sucrose, it's literally feeling like you're playing like a budget Venti, just without pulling the enemies together when it comes down to your burst. And I think, to be honest, you're gonna get the closest with wanting a Venti with Sucrose. But the problem that I find with her, and this could only be me, but I swear to God, it cannot only be me here. Why in the world, whenever I use my burst, for some odd reason, it doesn't want to combine itself with an element, bruh. Instead, it wants to do everything else. It wants to miss my combinings and make sure that it just does not want to combine with whatever element that I'm throwing at it. I would throw a Bennett O at it, anything. And it's like, you want to do fire? Nah, bruh. Instead, we're going to do hydro. And I'm like, can you just swirl, please? Like, instead of not? And I'm just sitting here asking myself, like, why does this not do what I want it to do? So that's really the only issue that I find with Sucrose, is just that sometimes her burst is like a hit or miss when it comes down to swirling. But overall, other than that, and it's probably on my case or my situation, I'm probably just not swirling it right. That's the only time I feel as though Venti does a lot better than Sucrose in those cases. I feel as though Sucrose element skilled does a lot better than Venti's, because you're able to put one weapon on there that gives her 3 charges, and they do it really fast, really quick. It just groups up them really easily, and you don't have to waste too much time. You get your particles, and then you go about your day. It's really deep down, whenever you compare each other, you really just caring about the burst at this point, because both of them do AoE Anemo damage. Both of them have a good element skill that just throws the enemies in the air, providing you with the AoE. Again, both of them are in Mondstadt. You can farm them pretty easily. They do their roles really good. I mean, it's not much really too much say on each other, other than, like I said, their birth. But I would say overall, I still feel as though Venti will do better than most cases than Sucrose, because I don't want to be trying to do 50-50s with my burst here. Now on to Zhao. Zhao is pretty odd, I will say. With being an animal character that swirls with your elements and everything, he actually does not swirl as much as you think. When I first got him, I was thinking, okay, I finally got a main DPS that does raw good damage plus can swirl. But when I actually have started to use Zhao and I spent my time building him, his burst actually does not swirl as much as I thought, and it's very little. So his element skill is the only thing that really swirls with enemies, or swirl with elements per se, and that's really it. So if you are going to try to compare Venti and Zhao together, they're in the same element, but they work in different departments inside their element. Venti is more the supporting role, while Zhao is more the DPS role. Another thing is, I feel as though Venti does a lot better than Zhao is Venti does not rely on other characters in order to recharge his burst, while Zhao does. You need another ammo in order to make this happen. With Venti, you only need him in order to get his burst back. However though, both of these characters are 5-star, which sucks. So that's the one big main problem. You have to wait on their banners in order to get them per se, and most of the time I will probably argue for Zhao over Venti, and that's just on my personal opinion. Both of them are able for you to get over obstacles or get to higher places. So all in all, both of these characters are really good. It just comes down to whether or not do you need a DPS or do you need a support. Now to the final character, Kazuha. I'm just gonna say, guys, Kazuha is gonna be better than Venti. It's just the truth in most cases. The reason why is Venti can only just put the enemies together or group them per se, while Kazuha is able to not only group them but also provide a damaging buff inside his little area of field that helps your team drastically a lot more than opposed to Venti. Kazuha can basically do Venti's job and even more in most cases. The only issue that I'll ever find with Kazuha is the fact that if you're just a low AR, like I talked about previously, if you are a lower AR and you don't have Inazuma unlocked, or you don't have bosses or domains, you're gonna have a hard time really leveling up a character, and you're gonna have to go through a lot of hassle just so you can level up one character and use them in majority of your team. So that's really the only downfall that I find with Kazuha versus Venti. But all in all, Kazuha just does a better job overall. And to be honest, if you had to pick between Kazuha or Venti, Kazuha will always be the better pick over Venti, always. There's no way that Venti will ever be a better pick than Kazuha. Kazuha also increases his damage depending on how much EM you give him. He also gives your team, depending on who you swap to, more EM, so you're able to do a lot more of your element mastery procs on different characters, such as like if you have a Hu Tao and you're playing with Kazuha and you swirl, then like you'll do more fire damage. Another issue that I also find with Kazuha is just the fact that whenever you use your element burst, sometimes enemies will walk out of it, your AoE that you put down, and that's about it really. So my final reviews on this: is Venti worth re-pulling for? Yes, if you are a new player and you don't have Inazuma. If you do, however, have Inazuma, then no. He's not really a character that you really need to summon for. But that's just my own opinion, guys. So leave a comment down below, you know, like, what do you think? Do you think Venti is worth summoning for? But other than that, guys, thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.